Okay, this is going to be chapter 17, objective 5, how hormones are chemically classified. Now, you can classify things all different kinds of ways. We're going to talk about how they're chemically classified. So keep in mind, form equals function. So the way something is built is going to tell you what it does. So if you change its form, you then change its function. So these go together. The chemical structure of a hormone determines its critical properties. So in other words, how it structurally looks is going to determine what it's capable of doing. So for example, how soluble is that substance in water? In other words, can it dissolve in water or can it not? And that's going to be based on its structural formula. Now, the solubility of water is huge when it comes to the human body. Solubility of water is going to affect how the hormone gets transported in the blood. Remember, the liquid portion of your blood, the plasma, is actually 92% water. So whether that hormone likes to be in a watery environment or doesn't like to be in a watery environment is going to determine how it moves through the bloodstream. If you've got a molecule that hates to be in the bloodstream because it doesn't like water, it's not really going to go where it needs to. So modifications are going to have to be made. So again, how that hormone is structured is going to depend on how it travels through the bloodstream, how long it lasts before it degrades. These hormones don't last forever. So how long is it going to last until it's no longer functioning? Again, the structure of that's going to be key. What receptors can it act upon? Again, the way it is structured is going to depend on whether it's going to target receptors inside the cell or outside of the cell. So it's going to make a big difference. So you've got your general two major types of hormones. You've got your amino acid based hormones. These are going to be hormones that are made up of, guess what? Amino acids. That's their foundation molecule or a bunch of amino acids. These are going to vary in size. And I know that you guys are like, where have I heard that word amino acids from before? Amino acids are your building blocks for proteins. Okay. Well, amino acids can also build hormones, certain hormones. These amino acid based molecules, these amino acid based hormones are water soluble, just like proteins are water soluble. They love water, they have no problem with water. But that does mean, if you remember your plasma membrane, things that love water can't cross that plasma membrane, that phospholipid bilayer, because the heads of the phospholipids, while they love water, the tails of the phospholipids don't. And they're the ones that build that barrier between the inside of the cell and the outside of the cell. So if you've got a water soluble molecule, like an amino acid based hormone on one side of the cell, it can't cross that phospholipid bilayer, that phospholipid tail part, and get inside the cell. It can't do that. It's going to need a doorway to pass through, right? There are actually three types of amino acid based hormones. So you can then break those amino acid hormones into three separate categories. Now, steroid hormones, if you remember, these are types of lipids. So they love fat, hate water, Okay. Steroid hormones are actually made from your base molecule cholesterol, which is a type of steroid hormone, or which is a type of steroid. I'm sorry. These are lipid soluble rather than water soluble, and they can cross the plasma membrane. So if you put a steroid based hormone on one side of the cell, it can easily pass through because that phospholipid bilayer, it's not scared of that hydrophobic zone. It's also hydrophobic. Examples of steroid hormones are your gonadal hormones. These are going to be estrogen and testosterone. Your adrenocortical hormones, such as cortisol and aldosterone. So these four, testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, and aldosterone, are steroid based. They do not like water, and they can easily cross the plasma membrane to get inside of the cells. Now, these amino acids, we said there were three subcategories of these amino acid hormones, and they're based on basically how many amino acids make them up. So if you've got an amine hormone, they are made from individual amino acids. If you've got a peptide hormone, they're made of a few amino acids linked together in a chain, maybe up to 15 different amino acids or 15 amino acids linked together. So they're small. And then protein hormones, these things are huge. These might have hundreds of thousands of amino acids all linked together. So amine hormones are going to be really small. And as you move up, protein hormones are going to be the largest because they're going to contain the most amino acids. So it's just based on size. So this just kind of gives you a flow chart of the structure of hormones. Okay, if you're classifying hormones based on structure, just a little flow chart there to kind of help you visualize what's going on. Now, amine hormones, these are created from simple amino acids. So, for example, these you got 20 amino acids, and they're the building blocks for all the proteins that you've got, kind of like the letters of the alphabet are the building blocks for all the words we have in our dictionary. Okay, same thing. We've got our 20 amino acids, they will build any protein that you need. And you can do 3-letter abbreviations for your amino acids, you can do 1-letter abbreviations for your amino acids. But of the 20, these two right here are the ones we're interested in this unit. Tryptophan and tyrosine. These are your 2 amino acids that can build hormones. So again, 2 amino acids that have the ability to directly create hormones. We've got tryptophan right here, and it creates the hormone melatonin. And if you remember, melatonin is secreted from the pineal gland, which causes, that affects your sleep-wake cycle. When melatonin is present, you go to sleep, you're sleepy. So melatonin is synthesized from the amino acid tryptophan. Yes, that L right there, you have an L and a D version of all of these things. The L version is the one that is chemically conducive to living things. The D version doesn't work. So it's kind of a isomer. We'll talk about those maybe in a little bit. And then your thyroid hormones, they're going to be derived from the amino acid tyrosine, as well as, so thyroid hormones are going to be T3 and T4, triiodothyronine and tetraiodothyronine. When we say thyroid hormones, we're not including calcitonin, right? Your thyroid gland secretes 3 hormones, T3, T4, and calcitonin. Your thyroid hormones, also known as your metabolic hormones, are T3 and T4. Calcitonin is not part of that group. Yes, I know it gets secreted from the thyroid gland, but it has to do with calcium homeostasis. So that's kind of, it's secreted from the thyroid gland, but when we say thyroid hormones, that's not the one we're talking about. So your epinephrine, norepinephrine, and dopamine, they're also synthesized from the amino acid tyrosine. So regarding the L and the D, I just thought this was a funny little thing, but you know what? It's kind of cute. So the L version of the molecules is one that's chemically active. So remember L-tyrosine or L-tryptophan, those are going to be chemically active. So in other words, if you got, a right and a left version is what that means. So I just thought that Samuel L. Jackson was pretty cool. So this is just showing you the chemical structure. You don't have to know this, but again, the chemistry person in me really likes it. You've got the L-tyrosine versus the D-tyrosine. They're mirror images. They're stereoisomers, also known as enantiomers. It's kind of like your right and your left hand. Your right and your left hand are mirror images. You can't superimpose them on top of each other, right? So this is the same way. Okay, you've got an L version and a D version. Peptide hormones, remember these are a little bit bigger. They're going to have a chain. They're going to be amino acids that are actually bonded together to other amino acids. And this is going to be a small one. An example might be oxytocin. If you remember, oxytocin is involved in milk letdown. Prolactin was milk production. Oxytocin is milk letdown. And it's also for uterine contractions during the birthing process. And you can see that this oxytocin structure here is made up of only a few amino acids linked together. So this would be an example of a peptide amino acid hormone. Now, the protein hormones, remember, these are the largest. They're going to have the most amino acids all joined together. They're going to create a long chain. So this right here is an example of what follicle stimulating hormone, what that hormone looks like. And you can't even see the individual little amino acids, but those that protein structure, is going to have those beta sheets and those alpha helices in there, and you can kind of see some of those alpha helices and beta pleated sheets within that structure. This is what follicle stimulating hormone looks like. It is a bunch of amino acids. And then when you get them all together like that, they start folding and twisting and doing all kinds of stuff, making the shape of that follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, so summary, amino acid versus steroid hormones. So the amino acid hormones, they are soluble in water, also known as hydrophilic. They can easily travel through the bloodstream to their target cell. They have a short half-life. As they're traveling through the bloodstream, they're bumping into stuff, breaking down, stuff like that. So they're not going to live very long once they are created. They're fairly short-lived. They cannot pass through the target membrane. So again, the fact that they're hydrophilic and love water means they're not going to get through that plasma membrane. On the reverse of that, steroid hormones, they're not soluble in water, also known as hydrophobic. This lets you know, oh, hey, hydrophobic stuff loves to pass through that phospholipid bilayer and get inside that cell. Steroid hormones, because they don't like water, and your plasma is 92% water, in order for steroid hormones to make it through the bloodstream, that watery environment, they're actually going to require a transport protein in order to join with them to help them move easily through the bloodstream. An amphipathic molecule. Part of the molecule is going to like hanging onto the steroid, and the other part is going to like being in that watery environment. Kind of like a phospholipid was amphipathic. These steroid hormones are going to bind to a protein that will allow them to travel through the bloodstream. And because they now have a binding protein to help them along, they're going to last longer in the bloodstream. So they're going to have a long half-life. So I wasn't sure if everybody knew what the word half-life meant. So I wanted to go ahead and just make sure we were all on the same page when we say that phrase. Half-life is the time required for the chemical to reach half the concentration it started at. That's still kind of, okay, what are you talking about? So let's say you have, I'm just going to use 100 grams, let's say 100 grams of a substance that has entered your bloodstream. How long does it take that substance to get to where it's only 50 grams, half of what it started? That's half-life. The time it takes a substance to get half of what it initially had. That's the half-life. And the longer the half-life, the longer it's going to last. And for some reason, I like that slide, so I put it on there twice. Oh, I know why I did this. Because when you guys print these out, a lot of times, because I've got these kind of hidden right here, when you print them out, those stay hidden on the printout. So I gave you this slide here. So if you were to print, or if you were just to look at the PowerPoint without putting it in PowerPoint mode, you can actually see this slide. So that's why I put it on there. And that concludes objective 5.